will in fact be upheld, will be followed through with, because we are, and that's something that each of the council, members are very aware of the different pledges that were made by the Long Island Railroad, and we want to make sure that they, they've given us no reason to believe that they won't be, but we want to make sure that they live up to all the pledges that they made to us.
Okay, just two other things. Atlantic Avenue, recently they just dug up the road straight down. This, I guess, is the water company.
I was going to say, who's the they?
That's the water company.
Yeah.
Okay. So their road has actually just been covered. That's it. Again, this is back to, repaving and all of that kind of stuff and sealing. So they're going to get kind of hit doubly. I mean, you've got this, and now road work isn't really stopped now for the season, so it's going to be in the spring. So you've got a lot of loose tar and whatnot that's on the road, so they're going to have to deal with that for Christmas time. And then right after that, now you've got the third rail project, which is what they butt up against it. And I just think it's going to be really, really undue hardship on Atlantic Avenue, the folks that are on Atlantic Avenue.
So, the water...
And I'm just making a statement on as far as
that's concerned. So have you reached out to the water company? Because
no, not at all. This is just something that just happened.
Oh, okay. So they need to know about your concern, and we'll certainly make sure that as we're working with the Long Island Railroad, that they're aware of that as well. So like Robert, you're taking notes on that?
2-block stretch it's like a disaster over there. And then now you're going to have some snow, and you're going to have all this little gravel, loose tar and whatnot. The other thing it came to my attention just recently, I just want to see maybe the town can help, is Call Place's holiday Christmas tree that we do to decorate and do with Santa Claus. It's actually in an area of deterioration where it's hollow, part of it broke down. I'm just wondering, if the town possibly could help as far as, maybe a possible replacement, or, just give it some kind of thought or something. And that's all I have to say.
Okay, so I'm not familiar, with
So
that.
the tree that you're talking about, the one on the corner of
Right on
Cherry
the corner
and
Cherry and Westbury Avenue.
So that actually is private property.
Right.
So it would have to be a discussion with the property owner.
Okay. But I was just wondering, is there a way that, maybe the town of North Hempstead could help us secure a tree?
Well, why don't we just discuss it?
Yeah, we'll discuss
Okay,
it,
it's just something I'm just, this is
Certainly
just
not
something
for
that's
now.
come to my attention.
Right.
That's all. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'll be back for the planning if you can just make a note of that. Thanks.
We have no other cards.
Okay, great. Mr. Wink, if you'd please begin today's agenda.
Public hearings. Item 1, a public hearing to consider the adoption of a local law amending Chapter 51 of the Town Code of the Town of North Hempstead entitled Taxation.
All right, so I'd like to acknowledge that Peter Gong is with us today, and I know that it's because of this law that we're about to discuss. And so thank you for being here, and Peter's a member of our Veterans Advisory Committee, so thank you for all that you do on behalf of our veterans. So as I mentioned at the set date for this item, the Cold War Veterans Bill 6510 provided a 10-year property tax exemption to veterans who served on active duty in the United States Armed Forces during the Cold War. Assemblyman Tony Durso proposed to end the term limit and extend the exemption as long as the qualified veteran remains the veterans remain in their homes. This bill has been passed by the Assembly and the Senate and signed by the governor. So we here at the town are now able to adopt a local resolution to end the term limit, and that is what today's resolution will do. So it would make it extending as long as the qualified veteran remains in his or her home. I will say that when I inquired as to the council members about this, everyone's response was so enthusiastic. So this is a town board that is very much supportive of our veterans, and so I'm looking forward to doing this. So right now, is there anybody from the public that would like to speak regarding this resolution? Is any council member would like to say something? Okay. Then I would like to close the public hearing and move for its adoption.
Councilwoman DeGiorgio.
Aye.
Councilwoman Kaplan.
Aye.
Councilwoman Russell.
Aye.
Councilwoman Seaman.
Aye.
Councilman Zuckerman.
Aye.
Supervisor Bosworth.
Aye. So that's great.
Resolutions. Item 2, a resolution establishing the Town of North Hempstead Tree Advisory Board.
Right, so in order to be certified as Tree City USA, we need to meet 4 requirements. One is that the town celebrates Arbor Day, and we do. That we spend $2 per capita on trees and tree maintenance. We do that. That we have a tree policy. We do. But it's come to our attention that we need to have a tree advisory board. And so that is what this resolution would be doing. It would be establishing the Town of North Hempstead Tree Advisory Board. Is there anybody who'd like to comment on that? I'd like to offer the resolution and move for its adoption.
Councilwoman Giorgio.
Aye.
Councilwoman Kaplan.
Aye.
Councilwoman Russell.
Aye.
Councilwoman Seaman.
Aye.
Councilman Zuckerman.
Aye.
Supervisor Bosworth.
Aye. I move to adjourn.
Councilwoman DeGiorgio.
Aye.
Councilman Ferrara. Oh, excuse me. Councilwoman Kaplan.
Aye.
Councilwoman Russell.
Aye.
Councilwoman Seaman.
Aye.
Councilman Zuckerman.
Aye.
Supervisor Bosworth.
Aye. So I'd also like to mention that Councilman Ferrara has had some difficulty with his leg, and so he's not able to be here with us today. But I know that Kay is here and that he's watching at home and and wanting to participate, of course. So, Mr. Wink, would you please call the capital plan work session to order?
Town of North Hempstead Board Work Session.
Excuse me, I think we have to adjourn.
Oh, we didn't do, you're right.
So we did it.
Sorry. I
Yeah, we
moved to
did adjourn.
adjourn.
We adjourned it.
We did adjourn.
We did adjourn.
Liz. No, we just had the resolution for
No.
the adoption. We adjourned?
Okay.
Took a motion to adjourn.
There you go.
Okay.
I
Then we
didn't
should adjourn. Okay, all right. It's early in the
All right.
morning. Everybody wake up? Okay.
Town of North Hempstead Board Board Work Session, Wednesday, December 6, 2017. Councilwoman DeGiorgio.
Here.
Councilman Ferrara. Councilwoman Kaplan.
Here.
Councilwoman Russell.
Here.
Councilwoman Seaman.
Here.
Councilman Zuckerman.
Here.
Supervisor Bosworth.
Here. Okay, so this is a public work session regarding the Town of North Hempstead's 2018 capital plan. And we're... Well, good morning again, and welcome to our capital plan work session. The purpose of the work session is to review the proposed capital improvement plan for 2018 through 2022. The capital plan presents the major projects of the town that the town will be pursuing over the next 5 years. The plan also shows the proposed funding for each project, whether it's through bonding, through, in one case, using fund balance, grants, or FEMA reimbursement. The town's road infrastructure is critically important to our council members, and they've continued to indicate that they'd like to see more funds dedicated to road and sidewalk improvements. And so we're increasing funding for road drainage and sidewalk improvements. The proposal includes an increase of $2 million to a total of $4.2 million for road repaving. Drainage-related work is included in the plan with $100,000 to respond to major emergencies. Sidewalk repairs are important for pedestrian safety, of course, and this year we're making a commitment to address sidewalks by increasing the allocation from $100,000 to $1 million annually. I want to take this opportunity to thank each council person for the focus on these important issues and their agreement that more funding needs to be devoted to our road infrastructure. The plan also provides funding to improve the quality of parks for our constituents. Our park system is where we come together as a community for concerts, programs for both seniors and families, summer recreation opportunities, as John pointed out, Little League, and of course to enjoy the various pools that we have. For example, building off of the locker room improvements completed in 2017 in Whitney Pond Park, the plan provides for the improvement of the grounds surrounding the pool. At Martin Bunky Reed Park, we're planning to install a splash pad, which will further enhance the amenities in this park when residents go there to enjoy the outdoor classroom that was also completed in 2017. We're looking forward towards the future North Hempstead Beach Park Visioning will continue in 2018. We're going to be sharing various proposals for this park that are based off the community outreach and meetings that were completed in the initial 2017 visioning plan. So this capital plan is the result of the hard work of so many people, many of them who you're seeing sitting right here. Certainly our Director of Finance, Jessica Lamandella, with critical assistance from Steve Pollack and oversight by Deputy Supervisor Aline Cacciatorian. A special thank you to Paul DiMaria, Victor Thomas, and Rob Fazio in our Public Works Department. We are so fortunate to have you, having worked so closely on this, as well as so many of our commissioners who we see here this morning as well. We thank you for your contributions and for your suggestions for this plan. So we're going to start with a brief presentation by Jessica, and then our commissioners and those that you see in front of us are here to answer any questions you may have about specific projects.
Thank you, Supervisor. As you mentioned, the team that works on the capital plan basically encompasses everyone in the town. We've had communication and discussions with every department head, every council person, and then everyone on the supervisor staff is also very helpful. I want to specifically, again, thank the gentleman that sit next to me on my right with DPW. The plan would be extremely difficult to put together without your willingness and eagerness to develop the plan and for the ongoing fine-tuning of projections and estimates. So I do appreciate your time. In addition, as you mentioned, Steve Pollack is invaluable to the capital process, and without him, it would just be a much more difficult process to come up with a plan that reflects everyone's wants. And I'd really like to take the opportunity to thank the supervisor and Aline. Without your guys' ongoing support for our goal to keep debt as low as possible while still improving the infrastructure in a way that's consistent with our constituents' desires and our council people's as well, this plan would not be as comprehensive as it is. So thank you both. The plan is developed over the last 3 months specifically, but it does take the entire year as projects and concerns come in every day. And throughout that time, we work with each department. We ask for their needs along with what they're hearing from the community. And although we would like to be able to put everyone's requests in the book, unfortunately, we are very cognizant of the spending requirements that it would take to fund every request. So this is our first proposed plan. This is our suggestion to the board on how to best fund the various priorities that have been provided. The plan itself, over the next 5 years, will increase debt from the 2014 levels. So I just wanted to make sure that that is out there, but it does reflect the need for road infrastructure, as the supervisor mentioned, and that's where a lot of the increase is found. So
Jessica, I just want to add, this is a work session. So this is the first time that we're having an opportunity to sit together to hear the different proposals, and based on what's discussed today, changes may or may not be made to it. And as with any 5-year capital plan, it's really the first year of the capital plan that is the one that is most significant in terms of what's going to be done as we go forward.
So just so everybody becomes familiar with the document as we're going through, it looks the same as last year, so we should all be fairly familiar with it. But if you're turning to the first page, which is page 5 of the document, the project number is just a tool for the internal team to keep track of them. The department is typically the department that most benefits from the project. The project name is the project name. The category is just the type of infrastructure or project. It's a classification that we use to assess how we're spending funding. The town board district, this one is town-wide, but obviously many of them are within individual districts. The lead department is the department that is currently in charge of the project, and that may change over time as projects move on. The secret designation is the environmental requirements you remember the Department of Planning. I can get you the full. The Department of Planning takes care of that. The operating budget impact was there last year, but this is the first year that we've put more information in. So GFOA requires or suggests that as we're putting a plan together, we think about what the long-term impact of a completed project looks like. For example, if you're building a new building, what that operating impact would be. Many times it's neutral because it's an asset that we already have, or we're just improving the maintenance, but that can be a very important tool as you're reviewing. And then the scope of work is, again, what the scope of work is for the current year, and sometimes it looks out over the 5 years. The chart, GEO bonds, if you see a bond resolution listed, that has already been passed by the board. Many times we will need additional bonding resolution. Below you'll see the expenditure schedule, and that is what is expected to be spent in those years. It does not reflect prior year expenditures if the project is ongoing. And then the funding schedule is how we propose to fund the project. Okay. And so I just want to highlight some of the major projects that have been completed so far this year, and then we'll move on into the project. Alvin Petrus Park was completed, the outdoor classroom in Martin Bunkie Reed in 2017, the sports sliding at Tully, Denton Avenue boilers and HVAC improvements. As the supervisor mentioned, the Whitney Pond Pool locker room, Clark Botanic Garden greenhouse, Clandome Pond Road restoration is almost there. We'll finish the grounds in the spring. Manor Haven roof should be done by the end of the year. The fire suppression system at Town Hall 2, the Schumacher House hardening of the outside, the animal shelter sound abatement, Roslyn train station parking lot improvements, Clandome Road, Leeds Pond improvement for the drainage, milling and paving operation for the year has been completed. Major repairs regarding drainage in Port Washington on Main Street and then in Searingtown on Elm Drive. The MS4 mapping has been completed, is my understanding. And that's just DPW. So if you're looking at the parks facilities, the perimeter and backstop fencing replacement of Fashilla Park, which was mentioned by our constituent, the tennis court repairs at Bunkie Reed Park, basketball court fencing replacement at Bunkie Reed, floor renovation at the Yes We Can Center, the shade structure at 8th and Asbury, the parking lot and walkway renovation at the Clark Gardens, the HVAC system at Camera Park, Clark Gardens parking lot, the lighting phase 1 has been completed, various improvements at Broadway Park, including door replacement, roof repair, window replacements. We're moving to replace the Mary Jane Davies gazebo, which needed attention, the HVAC system at Clark Gardens in the main house, and the replacement of the roof at the Bunkie Reed Pool Mechanical Building. So you can see that, although we may not get to every project that we hope to get to, our departments are very busy and are taking it very seriously. So with that, I'll just move on and we can go page by page. Page 5 of the document is a project for public safety at the animal shelter. This is for various improvements. It's for outside kennels and heaters. And please interrupt if you have questions. We'll literally just be flipping pages. The elevator improvements, which this is a town-wide initiative. DPW is heading it up. Tully repairs is obviously a very important topic for many of us. And my understanding is that the vendor is in the building and they are disabling the unit. Is there anything you would like to add?
No, so the contractor is on site today as well, removing existing components. The new hydraulic equipment is scheduled to deliver by the end of the week. From receipt of the equipment, we're looking at about a 3 to 4 week until we get the full modernization of the elevator. Tully, so by the end of the year, first week of January, is the expected substantial completion.
And everyone is waiting with bated breath for that to happen, so that's good news.
The next elevator to be addressed in 2018 will be the one at Denton Avenue facility, the DPW facility and highway facility, and then third will be the elevator here, so that will be much later in the year. At the Gold Coast Arts Center, there's been various improvements. Next year, the Admin Services has requested funding for an outside facade hardening. At the Roslyn Community Center, we hope to renovate the bathroom, do a roof replacement. It's more of a repair, I believe. And then we'll also be conducting a facility usage just to have a better understanding of how the facility is being used and what potentially better uses we could see. We are undertaking an evaluation of our major town facilities for ADA compliance. At Town Hall 1, we're looking at the window replacement. At Town Hall 2, we're doing also window replacement there. We're improving some of the facade on the Plandome Road side, which will involve scaffolding, so that might be a temporary inconvenience.
So are these all the windows? Or is it just specific ones?
I believe it's all of them.
I can turn it over.
Okay.
Some of the windows, the larger windows, like in Wayne's office and adjacent to the vestibule in the clerk's, I guess, registrar. Those are original and they leak. So those are the main windows that are going to get addressed.
What about the Town Hall 1?
Here?
Here.
Yeah.
Town Hall 1, I don't know the scope of Town Hall 1.
Oh,
It's my understanding that it's every window.
every window.
When were they last replaced? Were they ever replaced?
Is Pete
Do we know?
Pete? I can get back to you. Okay, we'll get back to you.
Please.
Two very exciting. Okay. Are the Town Hall 1 windows original? The current windows?
Yes, those are original.
So we're replacing original
They'll
windows.
all be replaced. The only ones that will not be replaced are the big ones out front, the side ones. Those are all special order.
So when I know this was some years ago, there was a renovation here.
Right.
So windows were not replaced at that time?
No.
No.
Thank
So
you.
every council member's windows are also going to be replaced, and we'll get a note that you're going to, certain days you're going to be working on those? Thank you.
So the two other projects at Town Hall 2 are, I think, obviously really important for our infrastructure. Would you guys like to jump in?
Are you talking about the roof and the HVAC upgrades?
Yep.
We have consultants right now, and they're evaluating the existing roof and all of the mechanical systems for Town Hall 2 that are in dire need of repair. So we're expecting to have a bid set ready the first quarter, so late January, early February, to send that out for bidding for complete new roof and all new mechanical systems that are mounted on the rooftop of Town Hall 2.
And then we're also resurfacing the parking lot and upgrading the septic system. In Town Hall 3, we're looking at potentially putting in a generator switch. It's a replacement. In the event the power goes down, my understanding is that the switch, you literally just switch it.
It's an automatic transfer switch.
There we go.
ATS.
So we'll move on to the park upgrades.
And so, sorry, both Town Hall 1 and Town Hall 2 already have generators, correct?
Pete?
Town Hall 1 has a generator.
Town Hall 1 has a generator, Town Hall 2
Does not. Okay. So is there anything in the plan to get a generator for Town Hall 2?
I mean, at the present moment, it's not in the capital plan. The last time we had to power up Town Hall 2, which was during Sandy, we actually brought in a temporary generator. We were able to hook that up very quickly. So if there was a problem that we needed to get power into Town Hall 2, that could be done very quickly with the contract that we already have in place.
And so there's one already in Town Hall 3, just not a switch. Is that correct? Or you're putting in a generator in Town Hall 3?
No, I don't believe we'll put in a
The
generator.
funding
in
is just for the switch.
It's just for the
Okay.
switch.
So there's one already there then.
No, there's
No.
there's no generator.
No
There's no
generator.
Yeah. Pete
So
will
what-
speak on it.
Yeah, what is
Oh,
this
it's
switch?
let Pete come up.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I have a switch on the outside of the building that you plug a generator into, which will power the building.
Okay.
You bring a roll-up generator.
Okay, so
Yeah.
same thing with Town Hall 2, is you'd bring in an outside generator.
Yep. So Town Hall 1 has its own generator here.
So Town Hall 2 has the switch, and then we bring in the portable
This is
generator.
a Pete project.
Yeah.
Pete, maybe you could stay up here until, because
So
I know you're
back
getting
and
your
forth.
cardiac.
Does Town Hall 2 have the switch already?
Viviana had a
No,
question.
the switch is not being installed. There was a problem with that because it's a rental, and we weren't sure if we can install that switch without the owner of the building's consent. So I haven't heard anything on that yet.
I believe Town Hall 3 is the rental
That's-
property.
Yeah, Town Hall 3 is the rental.
Is a rental.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, but for Town Hall 2 is the question.
Oh, Town Hall 2?
It already has a
Town
switch.
Hall 2 does not have a switch. We weren't even contemplating a switch. In the future, we were looking for a generator that goes up on the roof, which would power the whole building. We haven't even gotten to that yet.
Okay.
So why are you considering putting the switch on Town Hall 3?
Because
Admin services requested.
it's rental. It's not rental. It's permits where all the documents go to. That's where it starts from, and that's more important
Oh, I
than
see.
Town Hall 2.
We love you, Wayne, but just.
Considering
But-
money comes to Town Hall
Where-
to fund this government,
Right.
maybe we go.
Duly noted.
Right.
We're protecting his documents, right?
All right. Any additional questions?
No.
Thank you, Pete. Moving on into parks, Broadway Park, the general improvements. In 18, we're looking to replace the playground, a splash pad, and then resurfacing of various sports courts. Clark Botanic Garden, we are looking, this year we'll be focused on completing a study that will lead to the rehab of the pond work in 19 as well as the walkways. And then the $35,000 dedicated for various improvements is for a grant that we received that can pay for smaller projects such as, I believe there's a generator being installed this year
For the greenhouse.
for the greenhouse with some of those funds. So that's something we would, as they come up, we use that funding. Clinton G. Martin Park, the parking lot, this is going in tandem with the pool overhaul. It is my understanding that it'll be installed after the pool season.
Right, that's correct. We're
Right,
currently
we don't
in
want to
design.
take we don't want to take any chances that if we do the parking lot that it's not completed in time for the pool to open, because we know the pool is opening this summer.
It is opening.
Yeah, we're currently in design. We're going to have to get permits from Nassau County because we're looking to change the entrance, so that's going to require a new traffic signal. So we don't want to have that impact us opening the pool. So we felt it was better that we would do it after the pool season.
But it's in 18, so it's not really going to happen in 18.
Well, we plan to start construction as soon as the pool season is over, which would be September.
In the fall.
You know,
So
again,
the
it's all
entrance-
predicated on Nassau County approvals, but like I said, we're pretty far into design right now, so it's a reasonable timeline.
You mean redesigning the ingress and egress?
That's correct.
Yeah. That's so needed. I never understood
It
why
will
that
stay
was.
Oh,
the
I'll
same
say.
way as it is till fall?
Well, it'll stay into,
The ingress and egress.
yes, the entrance will remain the same during this pool season. So we're looking to close that entrance and open a new entrance towards the east of the project, and that will give us a better pedestrian crossing and, again, a better traffic flow and not so confusing.
And is Nassau County in the loop on the redesign?
Yes,
or?
they
Yes.
are.
Oh.
They've asked for traffic counts, and we're working with them to get the project done.
Good.
Yeah, that'll be a major improvement.
Yeah.
Well, you know, when you
That's
think of
like so
how many
confusing.
people in the town use CGM for the different
Everything.
senior events and just general events that go on in that building. So it will be a very welcome.
Yeah, it's going to make a
Change.
big difference.
Yeah.
So moving on to the dog park. In FY17, we held the initial community meeting. It's our expectation that there will be a dog park at Tully
18.
in 18. At Pashillo Park, we're looking at updating the quiet area, which I believe is the entrance to the park, resurfacing basketball courts along with other minor improvements.
And so one of the things that we don't have in here is the walkways, and that needs to be addressed as well. The walkways at Pashillo?
So the focus in 18 will be on that quiet area because currently it's in very poor shape. So the walkways would definitely be, if we do have remaining funding, that would definitely be something we can do.
Right, and if we can't get it done in 18, we'll put it in for 19.
Yes.
Yep.
And that's something, after our meeting, Councilwoman, we did reach out to the Parks Department and assess what, their current thinking on immediate need. So we did hear your concern and we followed up.
Yeah, and I'm going to be meeting with the community again, and I'm glad that the civic president is here because we did a walkthrough last year and we identified some things that needed to be worked on, and the majority of those things have been completed. The walkways is one of them, and then there's also an area that used to be used for hockey or like ice hockey or something, the round area there. It's really not that utilized now, so we may look at repurposing that with some input from the community.
You know, Councilwoman, it might be a good idea to do another walkthrough.
Yeah,
Just to
that's what I was
identify
saying.
all the things that have been done and to see, what remains.
Right.
It's my understanding that there's a concern about like the quiet area, just safety.
Yes.
So I think that's why we're focusing on that in the coming year. Jerry Pond Park, the Mackey Horse statue. This project we did bid out this year. The response came in over budget, so we wanted to reevaluate the project and make sure it was consistent with what we had desired. Victor Thomas is leading this project, so we will be rebidding it in 2018. Yes.
Potentially, yeah.
Okay.
Do you have a timeline on that?
Well, we're in discussions with the lowest, the existing bids. We're in discussions with the lowest bidder right now, which is Woodstock, to see if they're interested in holding their original bid, and if that was the case, if you wanted to proceed with their original bid.
What is the issue with the Mackey Horse?
It's to do some groundwork around the.
It's a small oval plaza around the statue foundation.
Okay.
So the 71,000 comes from the Nassau County, and it's the remaining.
Of what we would have to come up with.
Approximately 40,000.
I'm sorry.
Approximately 40,000.
About 40,000.
If they don't hold their bid, then you have to go ahead for a new RFP.
Then we would issue a rebid. Yes.
When are you having your negotiations with them? Anytime
Actually,
soon?
Yeah, we did talk to them this week. So
The contractor's
Yeah.
currently evaluating his bid.
One of the things in the discussion was he wanted a little more flexibility with the timeline for getting the project done. Currently, I think it was 45 days or
very short timeline.
So if we had extended, he had mentioned if we extended his time for maybe 6 months so that he could use it as more of a fill-in project, he would consider his original bid. So that's what we're talking about with him.
Can you tell me what the original bid was?
97,000.
Yes, and he was dramatically lower than the next bidder.
Thank you. If you could just keep me in the loop with
Absolutely.
whatever he comes up with, I'd appreciate it.
All right, so then moving on to the Harbor Links. This is pretty consistent with what we funded in previous years for general improvements. And last year we had hoped, or we were in the process of updating the concession area. But when we received the bid results, it came in at a number that we were just not comfortable with. I believe Councilwoman DeGiorgio was very active in that discussion along with the supervisor. And we just felt that the town's resources would be better fitted to update the outside of the concession area, the deck. The vendor that currently, I believe, owns the building that we lease from is going to do some improvements that are needed. And then in 2018, we will be evaluating potential upgrades to the main house. It's currently where the tent area is. But in terms of bringing in additional revenue, that's the area that people have agreed upon that is more likely to actually, add to a revenue source.
So it would help them with their events.
Right, yeah, that's where a lot of cocktail hours for the wedding type event would be.
All right, are they still thinking about doing the outdoor seating area with the patio and all of, is that the improvements that they're still looking at? In the main house, wasn't that what
Yeah,
they
you're
were
talking about the outdoor bar,
Yes.
like barbecue area? No,
Yes.
no. So that's on hold. So what we're looking at right now is new deck, again, around the existing snack bar with those upgrades, and then an additional room onto the clubhouse. That would, again, assist in the events. so that you could have a cocktail hour in there and then set up the other main room.
I thought they wanted to do the outdoor bar area adjacent to the clubhouse.
So that,
Wasn't that the idea?
that was the original proposal. They definitely lowered the scope of work. If you go there, anytime you want, you could see they did put up a small shade structure there, and they have like a portable grill that they bring in. So it's a much less costly project that they actually did there. It was not designed or anything. It was all done in-house.
Adjacent to the main house.
Yeah, on your way onto the course, they built a small shade structure that they can use for events instead of spending all that money on that outdoor grill.
Right,
that
and
none
do
of
we
us
know
were
if that's done anything to change their revenue, or is it too early to tell?
So was it completed in 17?
Probably in the beginning of 17, but we can get back to you. I don't want to.
Okay, that's fine.
And we'll also be looking to make minor T repairs to T number 3.
So then, as far as what's authorized on page 20, which is close to like a little under 3 million, are we still moving towards that, or are we looking more at the 1,024,000 in terms of the total expenditures? Because we authorized.
So the authorized column is obviously what you guys have authorized. The next one to the right issued is what we've issued.
Right.
So remaining out of the authorization is a little over $1 million.
Authorized unissued is
Yeah.
what's remaining.
Yeah, so we will be needing additional authorization. Because
So is your question more of we have a lot of cash on hand, or we're going to be
Well, I
attempt
guess I'm
to-
trying to understand. So the scope of the project has been scaled back. So I'm trying to understand how that impacts what we already authorized and what we intended to do. In other words, are we saying we're going to spend the same amount of money on Harbor Links, but in a different way?
So the 147 of 2016, which is where you have the most remaining authorized unissued and
Right.
funding on hand, I believe the bond resolution was written such that it says the concession area at Harbor Links. So I'm working with bond counsel to determine whether we can use that for the upgrades at the main house or whether we would need a new one. But that funding, as it's written now, would not be available for any of like their equipment purchases they need, or like the T replacement or anything like that. So depending on what the design comes out for the update at the main house, we would need to come back to you for additional bonding.
So in other words, we would not use whatever was authorized previously and issue a new bond that's geared more towards the kinds of improvements that we want to make.
In the event that bond counsel says we can't use it for that purpose, we would.
Thank you.
You know, part of it also is we want to make sure that we have a wonderful facility for residents to play golf, but we're also cognizant of making sure that the improvements that we make are for our residents and not for the people who are managing Harbor Links. And
Agree.
we've had
I
that
mean,
discussion.
We've had that discussion
Right.
in meetings, and I definitely appreciate that, because that's always been my concern, that the town, who's basically funding the improvements, benefits less than the company that's managing the golf course, which obviously I think everybody agrees is really
Right.
not
So that's why.
acceptable.
Right. So that's why the scale down is to make sure that this is being directed towards our residents
Right.
to benefit them.
Right.
So in the plan, the upgrade, we've assigned $100,000 for the design of that facility, and then the $1 million, just to be quite honest with you, is a placeholder. I don't know what it will cost, but we would have to come back to the board to have that discussion. Hempstead Harbor Shoreline Trail, we're looking at phase 3 and 4 in 2018. The current projection is that it will cost about $1 million. And that'll be completed in the
Fall.
In the fall.
In the fall.
The design is done?
The design is done. However, the design was originally done for phases 1, 2, and 3. We constructed 1 and 2. We did not construct 3 and 4. So we're going to have to prepare new bid documents. It's not going to be a significant effort, but we're going to, again, make it just 3 and 4, and we're going to actually modify the bid pages for additional items based on what we learned on phases 1 and 2.
Okay.
So that'll
And-
take
and-
the
yeah,
first
and-
quarter and second quarter.
And if you speak to people, they love the trail. It's such an amazing project that we've done to phase 1 and 2. And Kevin, I know you were very involved, with the planning of that. People just love walking there to get you right back to nature. It's hard to believe that you have West Shore Road so close by, and it's something that we should all look forward to see that expanded in the way that we're planning.
The next project is a new project for the Capitol Book, the iPark soccer field renovation. We have it in the out years, just recognizing funding and capacity to actually complete projects. My understanding is that currently the field is grass and that there's a lot of issues with it, so the proposal is to put a turf field in that space.
Where is this park located?
It's right across the street from the Lakeville Shopping Center. I believe it's in District 5. It was built on top of a parking lot, and there's a lot of drainage issues, and basically every year the Parks Department spends a lot of effort on trying to maintain them, and basically any time it rains they become unusable. So the hope is that putting in artificial turf will lessen the maintenance and improve the conditions of the field.
Speaking from personal experience, I can verify that what you just said is absolutely true about the drainage and the condition of the field.
I have a question just about turf fields in general. I'm not generally opposed to turf fields, but I was at the League of Women Voters luncheon, and I think the other council people were there as well, so we all heard the same thing. And Patty Wood was the guest speaker, and part of her discussion was being incredibly critical of turf fields from an environmental perspective. I'm a big person on facts, and it was hard for me to verify what she was saying. Are we considering that evaluation at the town, or?
So Jill, maybe you could speak to that.
What's our position on that? Because the things that she was saying was a little bit disturbing.
Well, she picked on everything. So.
Yeah, right. Well, that's true. That is true.
So there've been many discussions
Right.
about turf fields, and I remember Great Neck Park District.
Right.
There was a discussion about that as well.
I believe on the federal level there was some research done that thinking that it's not safe.
There are many schools of thought on this, and it's taken the nation.
Right.
People are still moving forward with synthetic turf. It serves a purpose. I can't speak on about every study, but I think in general, little leagues, schools, professional turf fields are being still proposed and built, and still the way to go in the industry, especially where you have a lot of wear and tear. We're actually looking at even places where we have worn infields, even putting little spots of synthetic turf, because even places like Harbor Links, which is a beautiful grass field, it's just very hard when you have ongoing wear and tear. So, we've gone to conferences, we've heard these kinds of conversations as well, but it's still moving forward in the industry.
And is the issue the maintenance? In other words, because I know it's much more expensive to install a turf field, but do you recoup that cost over time? Because
It's really that you could play on them in different conditions, like we were talking about in rain and year-round use.
I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt. Yeah, what happens is put my coach hat on for a second. What happens is if it rains a little bit, the leagues, they still want the games to go forward because scheduling is such a nightmare, just in general across all of the county with respect to fields, whether it's baseball, soccer, any sport, football, any sport. So what happens is the turf allows the fields to dry quicker and allows the games to proceed. So maybe it's raining at 9 o'clock in the morning, but it stops by 10, and then 11 o'clock they can play.
Right. I mean, we just installed turf fields in Port Washington, so obviously the school of thought is that it's acceptable. But it's just interesting because I've heard that environmental concerns before, and I'm just wondering if.
So my question to you is: in 2013, we installed the turf field in Manhasset Valley Park. Have you received any kind of complaints?
No, I think people love that field, especially because it's got lights. I think this is much more of a global discussion, everything from foot injury to breathing.
Actually, more than foot injury. She was talking about kids getting burnt.
Right.
That it gets hot enough that it actually, the kids are, their feet and their legs, once they're sliding on them, they get burnt. Have you had any complaints?
We haven't received any complaints about burns. And we do hear about, it's like falling on carpet. So you could get a bit of a carpet injury. It's not the temperature as much as just a wear.
A friction burn.
Yeah, what do you call those kind of burns?
Like a raspberry.
Yeah, like that.
Like a raspberry. Like if you're
no one
sliding
complains about it, but it is, sort of part of the reality.
I guess this is something we should, keep an eye on. Jill, I know that you are doing so. I would imagine if people had complaints,
We would hear.
you would hear about them.
Right.
Anna, you would hear about Manhasset Valley
Yeah, I
if there
would
were
think the
complaints.
parks would be the first place that you would hear from.
Sure, I mean,
If you
mostly,
don't
we have
anything.
it's the soccer advisory committee that actually started proposing this thing, this request for iPark, because they're not getting enough use out of that field. They asked us to try to, and I think they
It
met with the
really
councilman
needs it.
about
It really
that.
needs it.
You'll
So
be hearing,
it's-
we're looking to
yeah.
do Tully over, it's time to, but they don't last forever. After
Right.
about 10 to 15 years, you've got to replace that, just like home carpet.
Turf doesn't last.
So it's a good thing for us to
Yeah, just
to
I was
be
just
aware of.
curious. The
Yeah.
conversation was very interesting. So it
Sure.
raised some issues that you think you voted to put in turf fields. You're saying, wait a minute, should we really be doing this? But
I think every community is different because we broached the idea in Carl Place with the Little League, and they were not in favor of doing turf fields. And
Oh,
so I think
interesting.
every community is
And, I think what the councilman said about iPark is very specific for that location. There's only a few inches of topsoil there. It's built on a surface that we really can't manage grass very effectively, and we can never get it to grow as hard as we try. It's very difficult. And drainage.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I'd just like to add one more point on that. We are aware of the environmental issues and health issues, and we are looking into, instead of using rubber, maybe using, I think it's a coconut material. So we are aware of the
They're coming
concerns.
up with new ways of.
yeah, the rubber was a particular concern.
So we are actively looking to see what the cost differences are and what cost benefits of each material would be.
What is the coconut material? Is it actually made from coconuts?
It's our understanding at this point, but it is more expensive, but there may be benefits, economic and social benefits that are better.
For anything coconut.
Right. Okay.
Moving on to Camera Park. I'm gonna let DPW jump in on this one. This one's an interesting project.
So, Camara Park has some drainage problems there in the front entrance. So, we think there are minor drainage problems, just to replace some piping there. As part of that, we've been asked to look at redoing the parking lot. So, that's the plan for next year, to basically correct the drainage and have a design for a new parking lot. Well, basically the same configuration, but and we would do that work all in 2018.
See, these are the kinds of things that don't make us splash, so to speak. They're not sexy, but they're infrastructure,
Yeah.
requirements that we need to be paying attention to.
Moving on to the next page, Manhasset Valley Park. It's the parking lot creation. This project hasn't changed since previous years. I believe a study was completed. Can we pass that along to the county? Planning. You have questions, but we are still in discussions with the county, which is why it's in and out year.
From what I understand, we've submitted everything to the county and we're waiting to hear from them.
Commissioner Levine?
Well, we're waiting on getting further details to get back.
Okay, thank you. I think it's been a while. We should really hear something from them.
Moving on to Manor Haven Beach Park. As I mentioned in the beginning, we are currently replacing the roof, so that's exciting. And then in 2019, we're looking at potentially updating the entrance booth and resurfacing some courts. If we're going through the year and we have the capacity to take on additional projects at the DPW level, this is something we could potentially move forward. But you can see the thickness of the book, and there's a lot of projects. So, moving on to Martin Bunkie Reed Park. In 2018, we'll be looking at walkways.
Walkways, the basketball courts, and also a splash pad.
At Mary Jane Davies Park, in 2018, we'll be looking to replace the playground.
Yeah, you remember we asked to see if we could look at the design. Do you have a copy of the design for the playground?
We passed that request on to the Department of Parks. I'm sure that they will be able to provide it.
If you could just share that with us so we could share it with the residents. Thank you.
And sorry, just going back to Bunkie Reed, there's also mechanical improvements to the pool area.
Yeah,
Correct.
one of the things we're going to look at is the pool. The pool mechanical is reaching its useful life, so we're going to look to do an evaluation, prepare bid documents, to replace the pool equipment. We don't know at what level yet. And then we have construction currently planned for 2019 as far as the pool mechanicals go.
And that's just the mechanics. It's not the pool itself.
That's right. We would be looking to do additional improvements to the pool surrounding area the following year, and that's right now in 2020.
But the pool itself is generally in good condition?
The pool is in good
inside?
condition.
Okay.
It's the mechanical equipment that really needs to be replaced. So it's going to have to service the community for one more pool season, and then hopefully we'll have new mechanical equipment for the pool for the following season.
Thank you.
And I just want to update you. I just sent you the plan that I received yesterday from the Parks Department for the playground at Mary Jane Davies.
Thank you.
You know, it's a mechanical drawing, so it may not be like the most aesthetically pleasing item to look at, but if you need more detail, Kevin Kelly from the Parks Department is running that project.
Kevin Kelly,
Yep.
okay.
So moving on to page 28, the Maryland Little League turf work. So we've included funding for turf. Next page is Michael J. Tully Park. There's a lot of work going on in this park. Turf replacement in 18, handball court restoration. There's an HVAC review process that needs to occur, improving drainage, methane work. There's initial studies need to be completed on the parking lot. The stadium structure, the seating area, the Parks Department has some concerns about its long-term usage, so we will be looking at that and what possible solutions there are. And then a locker room update in 19.
Just want to add a note on this page that the parking lot that's included on this page is separate from what's going to be covered from the FEMA page. So as we get towards the end of the book, this is the parking lots that are not going to be covered by federal funding.
I know with Tully, there's been a lot of discussion about the projects going on, so it's nice to see that they're going to be done in this year.
Next page is the Mill Pond Park, the yacht house. Victor, would you like to update?
Well,
Our favorite project.
plan is to have the documents out to bid with the bid opening in early January, and the construction timeline we're expecting to be 8 to 12 weeks, and have our model yacht club house facility open in late spring.
Yeah, it's really important that this be ready for this
Real
season.
timeline, because that was the plan 2 months ago. So
Yeah, I understand.
I get it, but you know,
I mean,
they already lost this past season. So the other thing is the scope of work. So we changed the scope. Can you update it in the book, because it still says that we're replacing
That's a
and
good
building
point.
a new structure,
we're
which we're not. We
restoring the
decided to restore.
Yes.
You know, it's
Yes.
not a landmark, but it does have some historical significance. So I think it's important that we try to take off. There's parts of it that were added later on that are in total disrepair that can't be salvaged. So
Yes.
we're taking those off and just restoring the very small center building.
You know,
It's
that,
like-
that makes great sense, because I know it is important
Yeah.
to the community, and it would be nice to have it at least as a base as the rest of it is done.
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about it a lot, and I think restoring it, we agreed, is the better way to go. Hopefully, it'll prove to be more, it'll be more cost effective, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I don't know
Yeah, I
about
don't know
that.
about that, but
Right.
it is important to restore it, especially with other things.
But everyone heard it's going to be done in the spring of 2018.
When is that?
The spring of 2018.
Spring 2018.
All right,
Is
well,
this
thank
yacht
you.
club open to everyone in the town of North Hempstead?
It can be if you want to be a member of.
Right.
They're more of a old school group of
It
people,
really
but-
is a shed, so there's really nothing in there. It doesn't have heat. It has electricity, but it's not like a clubhouse in the sense that people go there and use it. But in order for them to use the mill ponds for the model yachts, they have to store the model yachts somewhere. So really, it's a storage facility. And
Can you send us the requirement for the membership, so we can send it to some people who might be interested?
Absolutely. Yeah, we could
I
look
will
at it.
definitely I'll connect you with the president of the club, and he can send you the information directly.
Dina, why doesn't he send the information to every council person so that everyone can have that
Okay,
information?
that's fine.
Okay.
I'm looking into retiring and becoming a member.
I understand it's a very. I don't know that I don't know how many people actually can fit on those model yachts, but you know.
Okay then.
Okay. Moving on to North Hempstead Beach Park, the non-motorized dock.
We have designed this project. We have all the permits for the project. We've hired the contractor. Several weeks ago, we had a pre-construction meeting, and our schedule for completion is Memorial Day for 2018. The driving factor for this project is actually the fabrication of the dock. So the dock's going to be fabricated off-site and then brought in, craned in. So that's our driving force. But that's the date we're going to finish.
Great.
So then moving on to the North Hempstead Beach Park visioning and the sanitary system. I believe everyone's aware that the initial visioning has taken place. We all participated in those events. And then it's my understanding that in 18, it's just like almost like the next phase of visioning, where the plans will start to be developed. I believe Wes is leading this project. I believe he's here if anyone has additional questions on it. If not, the sanitary system, Paul?
Yeah, the sanitary system project is ongoing. We have 2 phases to that. Phase 1 of the sanitary upgrades is being bid right now, so we're going to do that construction in 2018. We are also in the process of designing the Phase 2 portion of the project, which we will then disconnect from the on-site system of sanitary and go into the district system. So that will be designed, bid in 2018, and we will be doing the construction of that in 2019. This also requires, coordination with Nassau County and the sewer district as well. So.
Steve has pointed out, just going back to the visioning, just to be transparent, in the out years in 20, 21, 22, those are essentially placeholders that we don't know what it will or end up costing, but that's a placeholder. And that's important when you're looking at the overall debt impact, and that's why we included it. Moving on to the Parks Master Plan, it's included in 2021. Obviously, if we can move this up, we will, but it's more taking a look at all the infrastructure and what the infrastructure updates would look like over the next 5-10 years. The Schumacher House rehab. Victor, would you like to comment?
Well, we had a nice Newsday article about it. So, so that phase is complete, and again, the next phase is, as we're moving through this kind of complicated restoration project, would be exterior improvements, new windows and shutters, new doors, and then once that's complete, then we can really start addressing the interior of the building, and that would lead to discussions as to what the town wants to use the facility for.
So at this point now, the building is sealed so that water can't get in.
Correct.
Rodents can't get in.
And more importantly, it's stabilized. It's safe.
Right.
It's safe to enter because it was.
And we did enter it,
Yeah,
so
we
that
did.
was exciting.
Sure.
And my understanding also is that now it needs a year to dry out because it had gotten so wet.
Yes, because I mean the idea was that, and there still is original framing that was salvaged. I mean that was part of the trying to keep some of the historic feeling, not just basically rebuilding the structure. So the idea is when you're keeping some of that original framing, it's been basically exposed to the weather for a decade. So before you really start putting in any finished framing or putting in windows, you don't want anything to start settling or warping and things like that.
And it's great because the contractor who's working on it actually loves the project, and he's just approaching it with that tender, loving care that you would hope, the structure would receive. So it's
that was a special.
Yeah.
How far away are we actually from being able to use it for something?
I mean, it depends on how much money you want to put.
Yeah, well, that's the next part of the question.
Well, we had received a
Seems
grant.
a while.
Yeah.
We had received a grant to do the initial work.
Right.
And so my hope is that when we're ready to actually embark on the next phase, that we'll be able to get another grant, because when you're getting grants, if you can show that you're actually doing the work, people are more likely to give you a grant to continue. So the hope is that we will be getting funding to help us with that.
Move on to the next page, the Stepping Stones Lighthouse. It's my understanding that in 2018 our focus will be on putting in the dock.
That's correct. So we're still pending permit reviews, obviously, but our engineer has gone forward with the design. They did their soil borings. Originally, we thought we were going to have to drive steel piles into bedrock. The good news is the borings came back and bedrock was not found until about 50 feet below the surface. So that will present some cost savings for construction down the road. So the plan is to construct this in the spring, summer of 2018, contingent on receiving all permits.
We have all the permits that we need?
No, we're just waiting on the DEC.
Just DEC?
Yes.
Okay. We have any idea when?
We're hoping they receive by the end of the year. That is the plan.
Receive it by the end of this year?
Yes.
Okay. That's a lot of hopeful. We're going to stay hopeful. Yes, I understand. Okay.
Moving on to the next is the system-wide fencing program for parks. Steve, do you have maybe some of the sites we completed this year?
Sure. So right across the street of Mary Jane Davies, we used funding from this account to replace the railing there. That was considered a fence job. We also did minor repairs throughout the town, such as locations as Petrus Park. We added some fencing that was not included in the original plan. We replaced fencing at Sagamore Ball Field, replaced fencing at Donald Street Park, and I believe that's it.
Moving on to the system-wide upgrades. Projects that we completed this year.
The Yes We Can gym floor had to be renovated. We also did a HVAC install at Camera Park, and that was basically it.
So we really use this to address issues that come up throughout the year that we may not have known about at this time, or there's throughout the winter, and other times things start to become a pressing priority when they deteriorate faster than we expect.
What was the issue with the Yes We Can Center?
I believe it had to do with was it the flooding or the roof?
If Jill can come up and talk about how it became the condition it was in.
So I can't remember the timing, but we had a burst pipe that caused some flooding that damaged, I think it was the spring before this past one, and it damaged the floor so severely that we had a lot of warping, and about a third of the floor had to be redone. And so while they were taking up the floor, we also repolished and stripped and repainted the floor. But the bulk of the funding was really for the new floor that was due to the flood.
We're referring to the basketball court.
Covered in insurance?
No, we're referring to the basketball court, which is on the main floor. I believe what you're referring to is the basement level.
That was a different flood, right? That was the year before. We've had a lot of water problems, and that was due to a neighborhood condition.
Drainage issue.
Yeah.
So it was the year of the flood, huh?
Yes. About a couple year floods. Okay, so then the next project would be the Whitney Pond Park general improvements. If there's extensive questions, obviously Victor can help answer, but this year we'll be doing the wall removal. I guess there's a lot of cement walls leading into the entrance of the pool. And then the other improvements for 2018?
The other improvements would be new shade structures that we're going to have installed at various locations around the pool. And what we're trying to do is, now that we're going to have our new CGM facility with a certain design shade structure. We're going to try to emulate that through the town to have a continuous feeling that you're at a town pool. So we're going to be having those designed and installed after the pool season 2018.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't we have a meeting about this, that we decided we were going to do a whole RFP for the whole park to come up with different ways of how we can actually utilize the park to its best use?
I mean, we had discussions on doing that. For right now, we were just kind of focused on trying to finish this particular project out. I know we were trying to get a site plan that would identify the wetland areas. We don't have that right now.
I thought it was more than a site plan. I thought we were talking about
like a master plan?
A plan, like a general plan that each year we could do certain work, but like look at the whole park as a whole.
Yeah, and we had several meetings on that.
Yes.
But I think the starting point for that, number one, would be to get a site plan and identify the wetlands. The other complication is that, we are looking at doing remediation for the pond. That'll come up later on in here. So that work might impact the master plan. So I personally think it might be a little bit premature to do the master plan, especially since we haven't removed the walls. We don't really have a good survey of the project yet. What we could do for next year is we could start the preliminary process of developing our base plans, if you like. I mean, that's what I would recommend, getting a survey of the park. Let's fully identify the wetlands, and then maybe work towards that next year.
Okay, so I would like something to that effect. I would like some survey to look at the master plan of what could be done with the park. And you talked about the pond. Do we have all the permits with that pond to go ahead?
No, we're just starting that process.
We're just starting.
That also hinges on the creek restoration
Right,
too.
that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, the creek and the pond.
And the creek also is receiving funds from the Lockheed Martin, so
Yes.
there's complications of that. You don't want to improve the creek that's upstream after
taking
you
care of the pond,
improve the pond.
I mean, we definitely would want to move forward with the idea. That's the best way to plan it out, but I think it's a little early.
These things have to go in sequential order, and so we leave it to you to decide the best, way to proceed. But certainly, there's a lot of interest in Whitney Pond Park, and we've done the locker rooms and so many other improvements there. We want to see that continue. There's been some interest in fields. There's a possibility to get a field there as well. So.
And I think before even doing anything, we need to look at a general plan of,
And
like
I'd
you
like
said,
to
have a survey and look at the whole project and what could be done.
Well,
also.
one of the good news is that in order for us to do this environmental restoration, we have to have that. We have to have that survey. We have to identify the wetlands. So that's when we'll get that.
When do you anticipate getting the survey?
We're going to start on working on that next year. So we'd have to issue an RFP and then start working on that cleanup process.
So is that beginning of the year, or are we talking end of 2018?
I think we would issue the RFP in the first quarter, start working on it in the second quarter, and maybe have some sort of results towards the end of the year, as far as that goes.
Thank you, Paul.
Sorry, with regards to the shade structure, do you know what the cost of a shade structure is for the pool?
Well,
We're
we're currently estimating about $150,000.
Yeah, I mean, we're using what the costs are going to be at CGM as a guide. The shade structures at CGM are larger.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have as much real estate around Whitney Pool. It's a much smaller pool deck. But so we're in discussions with the fabricator to just kind of adjust the size, see if we're within budget, and how many shade structures we could actually install.
Don't we already have it like?
There is a shade structure there. It's for the lifeguards, though, from what I was told.
No, we have other shade structures.
No, it's more than
We have more than that
lifeguards.
there.
Oh, okay.
It's a much bigger space.
Oh, the one near the
just don't-
kiddie.
The kiddie pool.
Yeah.
There's an existing shade structure by the kiddie pool.
Yeah.
And the other one by the building.
And there's an overhang, by the building, by the pump house.
I just didn't see a lot of land there to have more shade structure.
I think this is obviously in the beginning stages of their planning. If you're okay with it, maybe we could set up a meeting between now and the 19th to have a further discussion about.
So I think
the
Jill would like to
park.
comment on that.
One of the areas we have been talking about putting shade was the old diving pool area, which is basically now just an open, sunny concrete space. And if we could put shade there, we could do more recreational programming. We have camps there. We have lots of people coming in that just like to sit in a more quiet area. So doing that, like coming up with ways to program that, and shade is really part of that. So that would be part of it.
This year?
Whatever the timeline. I think it was
Well,
after the pool season we're looking
After
at.
the pool season.
We would think potentially the installation of the structures, whatever configuration they are, and what our budget is, would be the fall of 2018.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to note that some of the camps that were there this year for the first time actually were so happy there, and yeah.
That was my question. So were we, because we had so much, we had a lot of issues with Manor Haven. Everybody was sort of overutilizing that pool. So have we been successful in shifting some of the camps over to Whitney?
Not only successful, but they've already asked to come back.
Oh,
They
good.
really
That's
loved
good.
it there.
That's
You know,
good.
because they used the barbecue area and they used the playgrounds and they used the tennis, and they really had run of the park and had a really good experience.
It's also an old style, what I call the big deep box pool, which you know, for swim lessons and things like that, that's what kids like to typically swim in.
Yeah, they could see, you could see where you are and
Yeah.
do laps. It's
So,
nice and easy.
but kudos, Jill, to you and to your department, because you really looked at that space and found ways to make it so welcoming to the people who were going to be using it as you know, for the summer programs.
Thank you.
And the proof of the pudding is that they want to come back.
Oh
which
yeah, I
is-
think it's a win to spend the money to renovate Whitney Pond. I think it's a, you know, it's a great initiative.
You mentioned the use of the fence money. We actually did fence in the area where those walls were to make it safer and more aesthetically pleasing. So that was another use of that fence funding. And just as a little side, while all of this studying is happening, we are doing in-house improvements. Benches, we're going to actually do that little area that's closed off now to the pier. We're going to do that in-house with our carpenter this spring. So we're trying to do things to make it more accommodating while we
Right,
wait
and
for the
also,
capital
you know,
project.
We did in-house in terms of the renovation of the locker room and the bathrooms. And I know, Victor, you were a great part of that. So that was
Great
a lot of
designer.
good work going on
Yes.
there.
So we'll, the last parks project is the World Trade Center Memorial. We're still in the planning phase. I believe Nick isn't here, but I believe he is our liaison with the committee. So I think it's the site location is what we're currently discussing.
So we still haven't decided where it's gonna go?
No. I think there's a desire to have it at the beach, and obviously that would be part of the whole visioning process and making sure that it's brought into the design in a very thoughtful way. And there, I believe there are also some that want it at a different park. So I think the committee is just currently trying to come up with what their recommendation would be.
Are the different options going to be presented to the board, and are we voting on it, or how are you handling that?
Honestly, I'm not sure of the process.
I think probably it will go through the 9/11 committee, and they'll make a recommendation
To the
board. Because, of course, anything that happens has to be approved by the board.
Okay. So we can move on to what is determined the planning department. So a lot of these I'm going to go quickly through, but obviously if you have questions, the planning department is here to answer. The Blue Way Trail, we are not doing any sort of construction in 2018, but we have it in 2019. The Long Island Electric Vehicle Charging Station Network, we have it out in FY19, and this is supported by bond or grant funding. The Port Washington Bay Walk is in 2019-2020. Streetscape work for Main Street is slated for 2018.
Yeah, can I get an update from planning on that? Because this is a project that's another one that's been on the books for a while. It really needs to get done this year.
Neil Stone, Planning Department. My understanding is that we've wrapped up the design phase. This is what Commissioner Levine and Wes Sternberg were heading up, and that it's going to be ready for bid out and handed over to DPW shortly, like in the winter to spring term.
Right, I spoke to the engineer, so the engineer is going to have final documents hopefully before the end of the year, and then DPW has to review them. So who's the person in DPW that's assigned to this, Paul?
Donna Plant.
Yeah, so then Donna has to review them, and then once we finally approve the plans, they're being bid in early, January, February. Who's responsible for posting the bid? Is it planning or is it DPW?
That probably would be sort of the handoff point. We would have to set dates when we would want to bid the project. Obviously, the sooner the better. As soon as it's ready.
Well, we have to start, be
So-
ready to, shovels in the ground right as soon as, school ends.
Yeah, so I would say planning department's going to pick the dates and we'll take it from there.
Okay. All right. So can you, so I continue to follow up. So I've asked the engineer to let me know when the plans go to DPW. So if you could just let me know, because I'd like to see them too.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you.
streetscape work for West Ferry Avenue is in 2019. We do plan on requesting a bond resolution, however, for this project. So in the event the issues with Nassau County get worked out, we can move forward as quickly as possible. Wetland restoration at North Hempstead Beach Park is a new project for this year. Planning has, I assume working with Tom, our grants manager, has achieved a grant. So the initial planning phase will happen in 2018 with work to commence in 2020. Now we're moving on to Public Works. The Beacon Hill Bluff design, was in last year's plan. I believe design work has begun.
Design work is ongoing. We completed our 2 soil borings. Partial survey has been completed. We do anticipate meeting with the design engineer after New Year for a progress meeting. At that time, they'll be proposing sort of stabilization methods. I think the plan is the intention is to finalize design for 2018 and go on and start construction in 2019.
And then, remind me, Rob, 19, 20, 21, the dollar amounts that we've projected, these are still estimates?
Yes, we will have the consultant, once we determine our stabilization methodology, they will provide us construction cost estimate to reflect that.
Moving on to the EPA compliance projects, the big project in 2018 is the vehicle wash station. And this is I don't know if you have any other updates.
Yeah, I mean, we're in design phase with the wash station right now. The one of the items we're dealing with is the health department requirements for recirculation. So that's some of the things we're trying to work through. We're trying to keep the cost down. The other projects, there's 3 projects really slated for 18. So that vehicle wash station is one. The outfall remediation, we're going to start to do that work. And also an EPA has requested a special environmental project, which we're going to complete a rain garden at the executive course of the Harbor Links.
This one, okay.
Is there an EPA that we speak to? No, I'm being totally serious because I know some of the stuff we're waiting for clearance from EPA. Is there an entity that is responsible or is answering questions?
It is our understanding that they do still exist, but obviously the current environment makes communication challenging.
So what do we do in case when we're really at the cusp where we just need the EPA's permit and we don't have it? What happens then?
So I'm just moving on to the Jerry Pond Parks. I think that's
really my
yeah.
question, yes.
I believe we're waiting.
Yeah, I mean, actually the planning department is helping us out with that, and they're been calling the EPA, I think, twice a month. So trying to get things moving. I'm not sure what else we can do.
So what's their answer to us as of right now, if we're calling them twice a month?
I think Kevin, you help us out with that.
I mean, this has been on the books for the last, I've been here 6 years, so I'm sure a lot longer than I've been here.
Yeah, this project has been ongoing for a long time. Right now, as Paul said, we're waiting for the EPA to get back to us. There's an environmental information document which needs to be passed through. They need to approve it. I've gone through 4 project managers in the last year, just from sheer turnover. So where it is now is basically he's going to review the information, get back to us. Jill has been following up on me monthly, and I've been following up on them monthly. So hopefully soon.
Okay, so we're hopeful.
Yeah, well, we're sooner rather than later.
Okay.
They can't hold me off forever.
I don't know. It's been a while. So.
It looks like they've been holding you off since 2004. So.
Yeah.
Is this something that we can ask our federal representatives to get involved in?
Certainly.
Yeah, this is a long time.
Would you recommend that? Would you recommend that we get in touch with our federal representatives?
Any help we can get to move this project forward. So. Yes.
Okay, so maybe we can work together and we can construct a letter to some of our federal representatives.
Well, we'll certainly do that.
So moving on to Lee's Pond Culvert, DPW.
Rob, you want to take that one?
So we have received our draft final construction documents from the consultant, so DPW will be reviewing for the month of December. The plan is to go out to bid in 2019, first quarter of 2019, and start construction.
You mean
I'm sorry,
2018?
apologize, 2018. Just to note that there are limits, restrictions for construction stated by the Army Corps of Engineers. No water work can be done, I believe,
March
from
1st.
March 1st to June 30th. So just keep that in mind.
We have all our permits though, right, from DEC
Yes,
and Army
all
Corps?
permits have been secured for this project.
Moving on to the next project, Plandome Road drainage improvements. It's my understanding, this should be completed? Drainage.
Yeah. Yeah, the Plandome Road drainage improvements, which is the drainage structure that goes into Leeds Pond. All the piping is in, all the catch basins, and we just have to do restoration work. It needs to be a restoration of the fence line. We had to do a modification for that, and then the general restoration of the area.
When are they going to be removing the orange? It looks terrible. Is that going to stay there for the winter, or?
It shouldn't. I mean, we're moving forward with our fencing contractor to get a
Okay.
quote. So I would assume once we get the fence up, that would be removed.
Okay.
I mean, we're 90% done. But the good news is that the drainage is working. So,
It is.
So
It is. That's
yeah.
it
It's
is.
just-
It's
that's-
already an appreciable difference. So
Yeah.
that's really good.
So.
Thank you.
The next project is the Port Washington Safe Routes to Schools. There had been hope that we would have moved on it this year. We had an issue with, is it the state or the federal?
That was the federal
Okay.
federal requirements. Federal government, due to the funding, objected to our apprentice training program requirement. So we're currently working out the details of that and how we have to modify our boilerplate to not include that and basically have the language that the federal government requires. So we have to rebid the project.
Okay. Moving on to Whitney Creek restoration. The design is budgeted in 2018. Is that correct? Page 54.
You guys changed it a lot. Yeah, hold on.
We alphabetized the book after Paul got his.
We discussed this already, we can move on.
Okay. Whitney Creek restoration. So it's, I think as I mentioned earlier, DPW will be issuing an RFP for the, I guess the permitting and design work in 2018. That will include the survey, identification of the wetlands. That will be at least a year-long process. I currently, to get up to construction in 2019 would be questionable. I think, did we put 20? Yeah, 20.
We put
So
79,
we've got the
790.
construction in 2020 because we feel that's something that can be accomplished.
So the 150,000 is just for
Engineering.
the engineering and
Permitting.
the plan and the survey and all that.
Okay. Moving on to the next section, which is technology. This is just for various improvements. It includes, updating our laptops, servers, different financial software. The next is
I'm sorry. Before we go on, Mr. Gaffney, you said you had questions for DPW. Did you still? So, come. Yeah. Before we move on to the next section, can we
Sure.
just come on up?
Just a couple of questions. The streetscape for Westbury Avenue, what is that entailed design-wise? You'll have to able to speak on that?
Yeah, so we put aside $200,000 for streetscape work along Westbury Avenue in conjunction with the plans that Nassau County had for the road reconstruction. That has not moved forward as of yet. We're still in discussions with Nassau County. Our town attorney has been in touch with the county attorney with regards to responsibility of the sidewalks. That's been an ongoing concern for the community. I know that the county said that they were going to move ahead and just do the roadway itself and not do a total reconstruction, but just do a paving of the side of the roadbed. And so that was supposed to be done sometime this fall. I'm assuming because of the weather, it's not going to get done this winter. But as far as we're concerned, we put aside some monies to assist with whatever they intend to do on Westbury Avenue.
Okay. Getting back to the ball fields, I just wanted to plant the seed.
No pun intended.
No pun
right?
intended, exactly. Maybe in 2018, I'm sorry, 2019, maybe 2020, I spoke about Asbury 8th Street. We have a little problem with that field in regards to drainage, number one. Number two, the base paths, third base and first base. There's the base paths that go down to home plate. They're about 6 to 7 inches higher than foul territory going towards the dugout. This presents a problem for injuries for kids that are rounding the bases, rolling an ankle, falling, etc., or even trying to catch a pop fly, where they're walking to try and catch or run to try to catch a ball, and there's an unevenness. I was going to express to you and meet with you there to go over it. Maybe Jill and some of the Parks Department might be able to come. We can set up a date to go over that. And in regards to that too, the backstop, it's going to be needed to be replaced because we've had a couple of instances over our season where, depending upon the batter, a foul ball goes into the neighbors behind into their backyards, and we also had a couple of foul balls go onto Asbury Avenue. And Asbury Avenue, you know, it's right there. We need higher fencing. That backstop there is not conducive to the field. We're hoping that maybe the Little League can help out as far as, financially, whatever it may be, that we can maybe help out on that end, if so be it. But that's something I just wanted to put out there so that in the future budgets that maybe we can address that.
Yeah, so I would want to suggest that we try to do that as soon as possible, and maybe before the end of this week or maybe early next week we can go out and make a visit. And so I'll have Howard schedule something with you and our Parks Department.
Okay.
Just one note on that, we do have a requirements contract for fencing, so like when we met with you on site at Fashilla Park, we just did the same thing. We can get a price quote directly off our requirements contract for the backstop and whatever modifications you need to help avoid foul balls going away.
And that's something that would just come out of operating, or would that be
We have a
something in
general
the capital?
improvements bond for general park improvements, or we can use the fencing, depending on the cost.
Is it possible, also one more question, there are a couple of pieces of fencing at Fashula Park by the dugouts that are in need of repair. The bottoms are bent up.
So like the smaller jobs like that would come out of operating, we just need to identify those with the Parks Department.
So
Before-
we'll maybe do both parks in one day.
Yeah, I mean, before the season starts. I mean, the whole 8th Street thing, I just wanted to put that out there, but the Fashula Park
This is the
fencing.
time to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Other than the improvements that were mentioned at Fashula Park, proposed improvements, I have no other comments. Westbury Avenue, we all know what's going on in Westbury Avenue. I'm not going to beat a dead horse. So we'll cross our fingers and hope that gets remedied real soon, because our businesses are in need of it, and so is our town.
Absolutely.
Car Place. So, all right. Thank you so much.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
So,
Mr. Gaffney,
I'm sorry.
Thank you. Pete Gaffney, Harvard Street, Westbury, Call Place area. I would like to see in 2018 that we do get the sidewalk issue resolved on Westbury Avenue. I know it's he said, she said kind of thing, but just to kind of give you an update, the Westbury Avenue was supposed to have been done before December 1st, but our legislator told me that NIFER had held it up. So, here's another curveball. But we do have an opportunity at least to fix maybe some of the curbs and stuff. I know that this is a very expensive proposition, but there's monies that are out there and resources. I went to, a little over a year ago, I went to Kathleen Rice, asked her for help. She said she would, okay? I have names of, their grant coordinator down in Washington, D.C. His name is Rob Tordero. He said he would help, okay? We haven't done anything. What can we do? I'm just a citizen. If I just go and submit for it, it's not going to happen. Also, you have the director of Nassau County Health and Community Development. His name is, I forget, I'm sorry. Nice man. He's willing to help also, maybe pick brains on, see what we can get. 2 years ago, Westbury, the town of Westbury got a $10 million grant. This past year, Hicksville got a $10 million grant. You know, we're an unincorporated portion of the village. Why not, you know, let's see what we can secure maybe from the state through this FAST Act
Sure.
fund.
So we've gotten, you know, a lot of grants. We meet with Kathleen Rice.
But I'm just saying in terms of some of the big
right,
bucks.
So let me just
Okay.
finish. So we've met with Kathleen Rice. We have a wonderful grants coordinator. Is Tom here?
Mm-hmm.
Tom, can you speak to that, please?
And then there's one other issue with, in terms of this larger grant, back to the Long Island Railroad. The parking in our area, I know you've done a site on it, but it's absolutely has changed dramatically. I guess maybe with the construction in Westbury when they were doing the bridge, people now are just parking in those two business development lots so that any of the people that have to go to the doctor's office or whatever, they can't park there. People are double parking and even triple parking and just all over. I mean, the other day I had to take my son to doctor's office. I had to park 2 blocks away. I live 3 blocks away from the office. That's how much of a joke it was. And it is a big problem. People are just parking there. And it's all free parking, plus the off-site parking.
All right, so Tom's just going to address the grant issue.
So, as Supervisor mentioned, we have applied for numerous grants over the years. We've received well over millions of dollars each year in grant funding. Specifically for Westbury Avenue, it being a county road, that's always been the problem with us applying for grants for Westbury Avenue. It would have to go through unfortunately, have to go through the county. For the $10 million grant that was referred to with Westbury, got it 2 years ago. Hicksville got it last year. The town did apply for that grant as well. Unfortunately, they were picking one area in Long Island, and like I said, Westbury got it last year, and you know, we can't get them all, unfortunately. But
I know, but I'm just saying these are actions.
Of course.
Also with Nassau County, fellow's name, the director is John Sarcone. He's willing to help also, you know, maybe to pick his brain.
Sure.
Apparently, he's like, you know, the grant guru in Nassau County, from what I understand.
Okay.
And now you're speaking to the grant guru of town of North Hempstead.
Sure, I'll get you right.
Because one of the things, again, Long Island Railroad, we desperately need parking over where we are. And their revised parking space, the way they're going to design this road, we have 14 spaces. That's our parking lot for the Long Island Railroad. That gets cut down to 5. And the problem with that is they're going to be coming out 10 feet and make the cars park horizontal. Next to the building is parking spaces. So in the event of any kind of emergency, there is no truck or anything that's going to be able to get through these 2 sets of cars in that particular space. And that's the reason why that building was approved, because that's a secondary access out of the parking lot. If that front parking lot's blocked in an emergency situation, those people are, forget about it. It's a
You're talking about on
disaster.
Stonehenge?
Yeah, on Stonehenge, yes.
So when we met with them, that was a concern that I brought up, and so they're going to be re-looking at the parking situation. And so initially there's 14 spots. They were going to be reducing it down to about 5. They said that may be off of the table. They're still working that out. They're in negotiations with their contractor, whoever they're going to select. And so we're asking them to relook at the parking situation and see what can be done.
Right. I mean, some of the other towns, they have received, you know, certain concessions and serious money in terms of parking garages, parking spaces, things like that.
So let me ask you something.
How
You know,
about
you talk
us?
so you talk about a parking garage. When you talk about parking garages, communities say we don't want one. So
Right, and that was part of their concern,
Yeah.
because when we met back in February, that came up about purchasing one of the properties and having the railroad put a parking lot in. Some people were in favor,
Is the
some people
president
were
of-
against.
I understand.
No, yes, he was there.
Are we okay or what?
No, in regards to putting a parking garage, the community's not for that.
Right.
I can tell you that.
Over by the railroad.
What the community would like to see, if maybe the town can coordinate with the state or the railroad to look into maybe purchasing a property there on the corner of Westbury, Cherry Lane, Daniel Avenue, or maybe something on Westbury Avenue that we can maybe get a parking lot out of, that the commuters can maybe park there, and also people who maybe want to visit the stores can park there also, shoppers. whatever.
So John, what you need to understand is that if the Long Island Railroad, and I don't know that they have the money for that, but should they contribute the money for that, then it would be a parking lot that's open to not just the residents of Carl Place. It becomes open to anybody who wants to park
May I
there.
ask the Roslyn train station situation?
Mhm.
How does that work? I'm not familiar with it. How does that work?
I'll let Peter address that.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Well, the Roslyn train station parking lot is something that's been an issue for quite some time. Supervisor Bosworth and myself, we recently added approximately, with the help of everyone here, approximately 59 spots. And the problem, although it's our lot, there's a condition. When we took possession of the lot years ago, the condition was that we could not restrict parking based on residency. So in other words, if you live in the Roslyn area, this can't be a Roslyn-centric lot or a Westbury-centric lot. And so what it means is the only way we could regulate the lot would be to make it a pay lot. And the residents are against the pay lot. So currently it's a lot that's available to the public, and it's used quite frequently by the commuters and so forth.
Yeah. And that was one of the things that the residents didn't want. They wanted it to be able for the residents of Carl Place just to be able to park there, and we can't restrict that unless we make it a pay lot. And so that was part of the discussion, and the railroad at that time said that they weren't willing to explore it any further because there was such dissension within the community as to whether or not they want it. But they are willing to relook
Right,
at
so
it.
every solution has some, so really during a work session, we don't usually
Yes.
have public
Yeah, this
comments,
is-
so
All right.
we're happy you're here, but
Yes.
this, maybe this is a discussion that needs
Yes,
to
absolutely.
continue
Absolutely.
in
Okay.
another venue.
Thank you.
Okay.
And please understand, this is a problem in every part of the town.
Mhm.
Great Neck, Manhasset, Port Washington, every single part of its part.
Okay, all right, let's go on to technology.
Okay.
What?
I didn't realize we didn't have public comment. I'm sorry.
We just, yeah, but, yeah.
Okay. So the next project is the digitization of records. This was coming out of the town clerk's office initially. This is just for basically a study just to kind of look at what our options are. There might be a pilot program involved, but to truly digitize all the records would be obviously significantly more. The next page, the townwide GIS asset mapping management. This was really driven, the timing due to a grant. We're working on the bidding process. We actually think we're going to rebid it in the hopes of adding another component that would allow us to save funding overall. The next project is townwide security facility improvements, and this is the actual hardware, and we've definitely taken advantage of this project this year in a way that is improving town security, so it's a good project. Moving on to general fund vehicle and equipment. There's a generator request from admin services, and then also a smaller piece of equipment, a ride-on mower. Parks and Recreation on the next page has a list of vehicles and equipment that they need. For more detailed, obviously, we can provide that if you're interested. The next page is largely vehicles for different departments. The animal shelter is an industrial dishwasher.
Yep.
There we go. The Solid Waste Management Authority, their programs have largely remained unchanged. There is the gas and groundwater monitoring system. On the next page, this is more facility improvements. I think anyone that's visited these sites will know how important it is to provide a safe workspace. On the next page, it's the leachate system improvements. And then also various equipment and vehicles for SWAMA. Unfortunately, Mr. Lang is not here today, but I'm sure he's available if you have more questions. Moving on to the town outside village, the Allen Drive and Summer Avenue, regarding the drainage work. I don't know if you guys can provide an update.
DPW has solicited 3 proposals from 3 engineers. I believe the proposals are due back at the end of the month. At that time, we'll do a review and request to enter into professional engineering services agreement at January town board meeting. I don't know the dates for the January board meeting, but that is DPW's intention.
So hopefully hopefully this will be done within the first quarter or second quarter?
Yes, the engineering, yes. And then based on their evaluation, we'll have a scope of work, and then we'll be able to address it.
How was this done? How is it that there was drainage put in it, but didn't go anywhere?
Well,
It was really like shocking to see that.
We've been up there as well, and we see standing water in two of the catch basins. So I don't know that it's not going anywhere as much
It's not going
as
anywhere.
much as it's standing in the structures. When the water goes into structures, some go out, some go in. Again, this is all part of the evaluation that we need to do. So we need to get in there and TV the lines. That's part of what we have to do.
If I remember correctly, this one, it looked like it came to an end. You could see the end. Like that was just not going anywhere.
And one of the things we have to do is we have to pump out these catch basins to go they're full of water. So I can't see what's in there. So that's why this project, while a fairly small project, it will be as far as the solution.
The cost won't
we hope.
be small.
We hope. It's a matter of getting in again, organizing, pumping everything out, getting cameras in there, and coming up with a remedy. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the next page, which is our annual road repaving. I think everyone can see that we've increased our funding allocation here by approximately $2 million. We've separated it out between commercial and residential at the request of several council people, but the overall program we hope to change next year, meaning that the GIS mapping project that I mentioned earlier, the part that we're trying to add on is a full evaluation of our road infrastructure, which will give us insight into a priority list to address over the next several years. That evaluation will likely not be available to us until the fall. So what we are requesting of the board is to do almost like a road repaving light in the spring, so utilizing some of the funding that we've allocated for 2018 in the spring to address those roads that over the winter become in need of immediate attention, but then really trying to keep most of the funding for the fall so that we can really attack whatever the results are of the study. Moving on to the next page is the annual drainage improvement project. We had to, DPW and Highway, I believe, had several sites that they needed to address this year, and it just became apparent that we needed to focus funding on emergency drainage situations that come up throughout the year. On the next page is the concrete road reconstruction. About 10% of our total road infrastructure is concrete roads. So again, at the request of several council people, we're dedicating funds. Concrete roads tend to be more expensive to put in, but they last a lot longer. So rather than a full road reconstruction, this funding would be used, I believe, for almost, would we call it patching?
Yeah, it would be isolated repairs. Basically complete removal of the damaged area of the concrete and replacement. So it's not like taking the entire concrete roadway out. Normally they don't fail that way.
So let me ask you a question. Somebody came up to me and asked me, the concrete that gets replaced often looks two different colors. Is there any way you can match the color so it doesn't look like strikingly at you like that it's brand new part? Could that be done?
Unfortunately, that will occur.
It will occur.
But it's striking in the first year, and then less striking the second year, and over a course of 3 to 5 years, it tends to blend in. So, but yeah, the first year it is noticeable.
Thank you.
The next project is Grand Boulevard and Westbury. It's a repaving project along with some sidewalk installation and repair.
Do we know where that is, the sidewalks?
Yes.
We've been talking about it for a couple of years now.
Yeah, the sidewalk project is completely designed. We're going to bid that project in January. So we'll have approvals some months after that. The project is a 4-month project. So I would say we're looking at sort of towards the spring, summer. Immediately after that sidewalk project is complete, then we're going to mill and pave the road. So we're combining the two projects because we feel that it gives a final nice look with the sidewalks.
With regards to the sidewalks, there's some residential area along Grand Boulevard. Have those residents been contacted with regards to the impact of their properties? Because in some areas where there is no sidewalk and we're putting in sidewalks, they're going to lose what they consider now as their property, although it's the town's right of way.
I'll have to check that. I don't believe that DPW did any
I
contact.
think Donna, was
Yeah,
working
but
on that the
I can
last
check
time we
that
spoke.
for you, though.
Okay.
I'm
I
not
think it was
sure if
about
letters
6
went out or anything else.
Right,
So-
because we need to know that before we actually move forward.
Yeah, I mean, if we have to do that, we have time to do that. I mean, we wouldn't do any of the concrete work during the winter, so the earliest it would start would be late March. So we'll check into that.
Okay.
The next project is High Street in Manhasset. In Manhasset, there's various improvements here. This is, again, included in FY 2019. I think there's some ongoing discussions that are still occurring on what needs to be done here.
So I have a question. This came up in our one-on-one sessions. Was there a sidewalk put in because of a disabled child? Because I was never told of this. And for the last 6 years, I've tried to work on this.
I mean, again, it's my understanding that, yeah, many years ago, over 20 years ago, that sidewalk was installed for the reason of a disabled a child or a person. I don't know the exact
years
details
ago?
of that. So that's what I've been told. I don't know that for a fact.
Before your time.
It's before my time. It's over 20 years ago.
Is there any way we could find out if that situation still needs to be remedied, or if we still need that sidewalk? Because there's a sidewalk on the other side.
I believe there's a family with disabled child or children living there. I don't know if the sidewalk was installed because of that, but I know that I know Michael Levine and I have spoken. There is a family with disabled children.
So there are two sidewalks. Are both necessary? Both sides?
Yeah.
Thank you. Because if there is a need for both sidewalks, then the whole widening is
Well,
moot.
there's absolutely a need for the north side because of the housing complex. So the
Yes.
question
The
really
south
is
side.
the south side.
Right. And that would be what would go into widening the street if possible.
And that's the section that was added.
That was the section that was added 20 years ago. Okay. So, I don't know how you're going to find out, but if we could find out if that's still necessary or not. Thank you.
The next project is Mill Pond Park curb work. Is this a completion of a former project? No.
Well, originally, yeah.
Rob,
I
go
mean,
ahead.
this kind of ties into back when we beautified Mill Pond several years ago. It was included in the scope of work. Unfortunately, at that time, the local sewer district was doing a main replacement, so we postponed that work until that work was completed. We have hired an engineer. Mill Pond Road is a Nassau County road, so we've been in contact with Nassau County. We received our first set of comments from the county back in June. A consultant we submitted for review and approval. We just recently received a second round of comments back from the county. I believe it was the first week in November. So our consultant right now is addressing those comments, and we'll be resubmitting for review and approval. The intention is obviously to get the proper approval from the county, go out the bid, and then construct in the second, third quarter of 2018.
Right, the Mill Pond, they put in a paver sidewalk, but instead of actually putting a permanent curb, it's wood. So the sidewalk is actually collapsing in certain places because the project was never completed. So it'd be a shame to let all that money that was spent on the sidewalk be wasted because we don't have a permanent curb there.
And I believe the new proposed plan provides 17 parallel spaces along Mill Pond Road, and I believe 8 head-on spaces by the house.
Right, which will be helpful too because there are a lot of people living over there. So.
The next project is the Plandome Road, Manhasset area. It's a sidewalk over the LARR track. I believe we're ready to go this year, but we're waiting on LARR to do their portion because ours comes after them.
Do we have any idea when they're going to do their portion? Are we in contact with them?
The main scheduling issue is when they can have a track closure. So they weren't able to have a track closure this year, which is why we didn't move forward with the project. But we've got our design ready to go as far as the work that the town is going to do. They've designed the project themselves actually for what the work they're going to do, and it's just a matter of a track closure.
You know, we have a lot of meetings with LIRR now because of the third track. Robert, maybe we could add that to the discussion as to, you know, although it doesn't involve the third track, but, you know, as long as, let's see if we can move them on this.
And yeah, it's gonna you know, take multiple closures because they can only close the track for 4 hours. So,
Right.
yeah.
So when you talk about closing the track, is it only one of the tracks?
There's only one track there, so they have to close the whole line to Port Washington.
Oh,
They're
wow.
working from underneath.
So the whole line will be shut off at Great Neck.
That's correct.
But it's something that needs to be done. If we're talking about safety issue, better sooner than later.
Yes.
So when they do that, do they provide buses? Or only?
You know, I don't know that I discussed that with them. I would assume that they would be the one thinking
no,
of
we
that.
wouldn't
but
be providing them, but,
yeah.
you know, maybe
But
they-
I'm sure
yeah.
they'll do that.
Right.
I mean, it's going to be the middle of the night, so.
I think for similar projects, that's what they typically do.
From my experience taking the train to like Hicksville, they have definitely done that when stations were closed.
Okay, great.
So if we could just follow up with on that on Railroad.
Yep.
Thank you.
The next project is Denton Avenue, the DPW highway facility, the HVAC replacement, an ongoing project. This is a new project for the book, I believe. It's the roof replacement at the same facility. In 2018, we'll be doing the initial design engineering work, and then 2019 with the installation. And the hope is that really trying to focus on this one to be solar ready, if not involving solar in the actual construction.
So for a long time, there were no improvements made to those facilities, so it's...
They need it desperately.
Right.
On the next page is the construction of a new Westbury yard. Given the number of employees that are at the Denton Avenue facility and the improvements that are required there, the Westbury yard facility is slated in 2020. Obviously, if other projects get delayed or go faster, we can always try to move this one up as well. And the 300,000 it's just a placeholder. I don't want anybody to hold us to 300,000 for a new building.
Do we have any idea what it will cost? What the actual cost would be?
A new building? I mean, I believe there's special
I mean,
environmental
it's
considerations.
millions. I mean, it's millions because there's a lot of equipment and things that would go in there. You know, it's too early for me to tell you that. You know,
We hope the 300,000 is focused on design and engineering because I believe there is an environmental component there that would be, and it's in the language of the scope of the project.
Say it again?
It's in the scope of the project, what needs to be housed there. There's a fuel tank.
Yeah.
It's a complex project, so.
And so that's an area we're considering for a stop program as well, at that highway yard?
I would have to double check. If that's what's in the scope, then yes.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. But we can also follow up with Robert Lang and just to confirm that hasn't changed in his planning. On the next page is various facility improvements for the DPW and highway facilities. At the Denton Avenue facility, the actual bay doors have not been upgraded or really have not received very significant maintenance, and obviously that is a safety concern. So we're planning that over several years to try to really attack those concerns. In the same Bay Area, there's a want for LED lights. In the same Bay Area, there's vehicle lifts that our highway personnel go under these very heavy vehicles, and there is a need for replacement, so we're trying to implement that cycle here. And then just various improvements throughout the facility. On the next page are the building department vehicle replacement. You can see that there's 80,000 in 18. We did purchase several vehicles in 17. So when we're bringing on these new personnel that the board approved in conjunction with the increased fees, they need vehicles, they need equipment. So this is trying to address some of that. On the next page is the highway vehicle and equipment replacement. You know, with the new acting superintendent, you know, we've gone over a lot of their vehicles and replacement need and equipment needs, and like many of our discussions today, they need a lot. So although the request was for significantly more, we're trying to work within the overall debt burden And in 2018, we're looking at 2.2 million, almost 2.2 million dollars of funding, which would potentially purchase, 5 6-wheel dump trucks, an asphalt milling machine, 9 F-250s, a sign truck. I believe there's a tree truck of some sort. An F-550 tree truck, and 2 sweepers. So, for a department that's received $800,000, I think in past years, this should, start the replacement cycle.
Well, we did that. We started with that 800,000 several years ago because there had been no vehicle replacements. And the idea is that it will be better for us to have our own vehicles than to be renting vehicles, because the vehicles that we rent, sometimes are good and sometimes they're not. So we're working very closely with Joe to identify, what we can do, and we've got to. All our departments are terrific, but we appreciate our highway department always, but particularly as we're coming into snow season, it becomes so clear as to the need for dependable trucks and vehicles, and of course that's true for all the departments that help as well.
Thank you. Moving on to the next page is a vehicle for, I believe it's code enforcement. The next section is town-operated special districts. There's the LED lighting replacement and infrastructure replacement project. We continue to allocate $100,000 annually for this project. As we mentioned in the beginning of the session, we've increased our funding to $1 million for sidewalk repair annually. Additional funding for sidewalk equipment, and then also we're funding area studies, which helps for the larger projects.
Are we going to be retaining outside contractors to do the sidewalk replacement, or are we doing this in-house with the $1 million?
I believe the deputy supervisor has had some discussions with DPW, highway, and just trying to figure out what the best and most efficient way forward is. So I can't speak to that.
I mean, now that we've got the commitment to have funding, so the next things that we're doing is we're evaluating the current, sidewalk district staff level. What staff do we have? We want to evaluate. We're going to have a concrete requirements contract next year, so that would be the vehicle to do larger sections of sidewalks, not repairs or not minor flag replacement, but major sidewalk replacement. So that's something that we're looking at as a real possibility. And then we're also evaluating the work order system and procedures, because obviously if we went that way, we'd have to have a modification to our current procedures and work order. So
right.
And again, we're evaluating the budgeted levels right now. So once we get our requirements contract in place, we'll have more information about how much work we can do.
Are you asking the board to authorize the $1 million this year, or in 2018?
Yes.
Will you have a plan in place by the time you?
We're already working on the requirements contract. That should be in place in the spring, so we could utilize that.
But you won't have a plan by December 19th.
We have a plan. We would have a plan that we could implement the requirements contract if we wanted to. Do I have a plan of where we're going to work? Is that what you're asking?
Well, right. Like, in other words, how many linear feet does the $1 million cover? What's the plan?
Well,
how are you going to allocate it among the 6 council districts?
That's why I need the bid. I'm waiting for the bid. So we're 95% complete with the bid. So we should go out to bid in January. The numbers will come back in February, and that'll dictate how far we can go with the $1 million.
I mean, I think the idea would be to sort of replicate what we're trying to do with the road replacement, and that we approach it in a logical way, and we have it evaluated by engineers or experts in terms of where we should be allocating our resources first in terms of priority.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just to say that the supervisor has heard a lot of your requests and concerns, and made this a very important part of the capital book. And there's always an opportunity to authorize the 5 years of funding for sidewalks in the event we can move forward even faster. So if the board wanted that, that's something we could provide.
You know, I think it's great because I think it's what the constituents really,
Yes.
we get, at least I know my office and I'm sure everyone else gets a lot of requests for sidewalk repair and for road repair, road replacement. So I think the constituents really want us to focus on this. So I'm glad that we are.
And that's why this is reflecting that.
Yeah.
But this would be an area that I think we will certainly be working closely with our state representatives. I know there's Repave New York.
Right.
I'm hoping that we'll be able to work with Senator Phillips and with Assemblyman Durso to see what they can do to help us do this, because it's a tremendous amount of money. There is money in the state. We'd like to make sure that we're able to make use of some of that.
So, two questions. So I know Senator Phillips covers all of North Hempstead, correct? But there's different assembly people that cover North Hempstead.
Correct.
Does the money have to be used in their particular districts when they
Well, I know.
allocate money?
I believe you got a grant for repaving through through Assemblyman Levine.
We haven't secured it yet, but
But
that's
that's
a
the
question
hope.
to ask.
So
right.
certainly that would be used in that district.
Right.
You know, in his district. So I would imagine also that Senator Phillips, I believe, is all
Right.
of North Hempstead. So whatever we're able to secure through her would be town-wide.
Right. I was
yeah.
asking more on the assembly
Oh
side.
yeah, well, absolutely. So,
So
you know,
like Assemblyman Darso, it would go to
excuse
the
me for
areas
forgetting
that-
about Assemblyman Levine. He's very important, and we'll reach out, of course, to everybody who has a piece of North Hempstead.
And then the other question I had was with regards to the LED lighting. So we're looking at the town-operated special districts. So this lighting, the LED lighting, is going to be town-wide. And we have started that in some areas. We've already started replacing. Do we have a plan for which areas are going to get done when?
I mean, for right now, our plan has been to try and replace the incandescent fixtures, which are not reliable. So we've been focusing more on the fixture types than an area. And now we've replaced quite a bit of the incandescent fixtures. There's still a few left in a few areas. This year we concentrated more on the major roadways, in particular where it married up with other municipalities. There's still more work to do in that area, so some of the suggestions are to continue with that in like Glen Cove Road, Hillside Avenue, Jericho Turnpike. So that's what we're looking at.
So can you just let the council people know, like, when it's going to be done in their areas, so we can kind of have an idea if we get asked about
We sure
the lighting?
can, yeah.
Are you almost done with all the iridescent lights that you're talking about?
Yeah, there's only a few hundred left.
So that should be done this year?
One of the questions on that is what type of fixture we're going to use. So we currently use a 4,000 Kelvin fixture, but in the residential areas we're looking to possibly use a 3,000 Kelvin fixture. So that's one of the things that I want to look at first before we make that change.
So we've gotten several communications from people who are concerned about LED lighting, and so according to what we're reading, the studies show that the 3,000 number is
it's recommended.
It's recommended.
It hasn't been
Right.
proven that it does any sort of
right. So if all things being equal, if we can go with what's recommended, we'd like to look at that.
So I mean the main roads it's still 4,000.
Well, main roads
so
are
that's
different.
why we were focused on that.
Exactly. So main roads, and not only that, you've got a match, because I believe on Old Country Road, the county had put in 4,000, and so if we had put in 3,000, it would have the symmetry would have been off. So obviously that needed to be the 4,000, but in residential areas,
Yeah, we're really we'll put some test cases up and see what they look like.
Right. It's a new science, right?
Have you gotten any complaints or any feedback, positive, negative?
No negative. Well, I shouldn't say that. No negative feedback on the main roads, but in the residential areas, you're always going to have 50% of the people that like it a little brighter, and 50% of the people like it a little darker.
Not so bright.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to keep moving on to Harbor Hills general improvements. This is the special district, and there's a need for the pool mechanicals to be updated. CGM pool, like we said earlier, we are moving ahead. We're on target.
Yep.
We'll be open for the season.
We'll be open for the season.
So you should know that when we were at the Greater New Hyde Park Leisure Club Christmas holiday luncheon yesterday, so many people who had been very concerned about this commented on the fact that they see that there's so much work going on, and everybody was very complimentary.
I mean, we have weekly meetings. We go through the schedule in a detailed way. We are still, contractors telling he's on schedule and will complete.
There's no other option.
Yeah. And
Just,
we are very
just
focused on
saying.
it.
Right.
Okay, so then moving on to the next project, which is the Port Washington Public Parking District, the Lot 4 renovation. One of the requests that came up in our one-on-ones with the councilwoman was the balance. You know, this district has built up a reserve,
Right.
and so we'll be using at her request, we will be using some of that reserve to help fund this project.
So do we know, because I can't tell from the chart, so we authorized, the bonding that was authorized in 16, how much actual money is left for the Lot 4 renovation from the bonding that we already authorized?
Okay, so from bond authorization 17 of 2016, it looks like we have about a little over 180,000 of cash on hand available, with 58,000 being spent. Authorization 223 of 2016, we have the full 300,000 on hand for cash on hand. And 19 of 2017, we have 313,000 of cash on hand, with the remainder of authorized unissued. The reason we have that cash is, obviously we had anticipate moving forward in 17, but just due to some planning issues, we were unable to proceed. So that's the funding we have. So of those 3 bond authorizations, we've spent just almost 60,000.
Right, so it seems, so then it looks like there's enough money available to pay for the lot, even though I don't have an issue about using operating expenses, but I'm trying to understand how much of operating expenses are available and how much do we need to get the lot done, at least Lot 4.
So the total of the funding available totals 793,000. Project's estimated at 890. So the pay-go, which is the fund balance that Jessica was referring to, is the difference. I would just like to note that the funding available, you have to consider that a live number, so that when the engineering is completed, we're going to pay off that contract, right? So when we're done with that contract, then we will know, how much funding. When the bids come back, we'll know exactly how much the project will cost. So again, this page, how much fund balance we use may differ when the bids actually come back.
So right now we're looking at using 96,720. And so, and did we ever, I had asked you when we met to tell me how much additional revenue is being generated over expenses, because it looks to me in the CAFR that it's 143,000 a year. So do we have an answer on that in terms of how much extra revenue the district generates every year?
I don't have an answer. I can get it.
Yeah,
I apologize.
I think it's important to.
Internalize your
I
question.
think it's fine to do this for planning, but I think it's important to know that, especially if the bid comes back significantly higher than we're anticipating, and we have to use funds balance. We need to know how much is available.
Yes, we understand your request, and in the event it comes back above what the cash we currently have on hand, we will go to the fund balance first.
Okay, and I know the plans are finalized. Wanted to speak to Donna today, but she's not in, so I'll speak to her tomorrow. So what's the timeline on that? I mean, I think the idea is to try to get it done at the same time as the streetscaping to minimize disruption.
Yeah, I think that the idea was to do it June,
Right.
July, and August.
Right.
So that's when we're focused on having construction start, which would mean we would bid the project in January, go through the whole process of getting approval of town board, contract signed, and then issue a notice to proceed.
And is there any thought to trying to time this bid with the streetscaping bid? I'm thinking, I don't know if one contractor could do both, but it might be a cost savings in terms of it's a bigger project.
We can certainly do that. Yeah.
It might help. It's
Yeah,
in the general vicinity, and the work is very similar. So there might be a cost savings
We can
with
coordinate that.
And did we reach out to the school district yet about letting us utilize that lot behind the post office while we're reconstructing Lot 4? Because it's empty all summer long.
Yeah, I did not do that. I
Who
don't,
would?
I don't know
Is
who
that
would
something the town attorney would do, or do you want me to do that?
to reach out to reach out to
Yeah, I think we have to sort of give them a heads up, reach out to the school board and see what they think.
No, to accommodate parking.
Right, so in other
For
words, to let the people who use Lot 4, if they would like to park in that empty lot behind the post office, because it's empty all summer long.
I would say that Rachel or Stephanie in the supervisor's office can coordinate with DPW on that communication to outside entities if you would like.
Okay, that's fine, just so that because, I think it's important to know whether they'll let us use it or not, because it affects the contingency plan that we might have to come up with if we're not allowed to use it.
Okay.
It's a good
We'll follow
suggestion.
up.
Thank you. And then, Chris, Rachel will keep, Chris in the loop in terms of where we are. Thank you.
The Roslyn Heights Park District. This is a placeholder for 2020. So then, now we're on to our last set of projects, which is the FEMA projects. I've asked Mike Kelly just to give us an update because there was just an issue with, I believe, our contracting. But before he does give that update, the FEMA projects, outside of the timing, they haven't changed. So just want to put that out there. If you want me to go page by page and read the names, I'm happy to. Or you can follow up with questions later.
They're all the same as they were last year. You were okay with us not going through it page by page?
I'm good with it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Absolutely.
So I've been told that a number of the council members have been asking what the status of these projects is and why haven't some projects gone out to bid yet. If you remember Paul talking before about the Safe Routes to School project and the town's apprenticeship requirements, when that issue came up on the Safe Routes to School project, because Safe Routes to School and both all the FEMA projects are all federally funded projects, we wanted to make sure that our apprenticeship program requirements were not going to be a problem for our FEMA projects, because we're talking about many millions of dollars in federal funding. We've been having a hard time getting an answer from FEMA and the State Department of Homeland Security and Disaster Recovery. Finally, last week, we got a response that our apprenticeship requirements are not going to be a problem for the FEMA projects. So we're now working on taking the FEMA bid book that we have, modifying it with the apprenticeship requirements, and also modifying it based on how New York State changed how they're going to fund their 10% of the project. So we have to make some bid language changes to our books as well. But that'll be done very shortly, and then I'll hand that off to DPW, and DPW, I suppose, will bid based on DPW's schedule.
Yes.
So we're back on track, in other words.
Yes.
Well, that's great news, because I know that was a real sticking point.
Thank you, Mike.
It's a lot of money.
Yes, it is.
So in conclusion, we have almost 2 weeks before the vote on December 19th. Any one of us, we're happy to meet with the council people again. If you would like to, go over any of the answers or timing or requests, just please let us know so we can schedule that in. If possible, those meetings would be really helpful if they occurred next week, so that any changes we can solidify and finalize a document. Because the next step for our team is to work with bond counsel to get all of the bond resolution documents ready to go. So if we delay those meetings and it ends up changing that, it can obviously delay the overall process. But we are happy and willing to meet with you again.
Can you give us a summary of how much additional authorization you're going to be asking us for in 2018? And then what's the budgetary impact on 19?
Sure. If you look, and I will give you updated figures, but if you look on the very back of the book that you were provided, you can see the total general fund expenditure is about $8 million in 18, with $5.4 million of cash on hand. It's just for public works, I apologize. So about $26 million of expenditures, $10.2 million of cash on hand, almost $6 million of grants. So the additional borrowing requirements is a little over $10 million for 2018 for just the general fund. And then the same holds true on the TOV side and on the following page, where you have $10 million of expenditures, $1.5 million of cash on hand, almost $150,000 of grants, with a total borrowing requirement of $8.4 million. So what changes that is if, like for the sidewalks, if we request $5 million of authorization versus $1 million, the Westbury Avenue will be putting the $200,000, so that would increase that. But we will get you a rundown.
But there's no, so the actual principal and interest impact is not here, right? in terms of how much it's actually going to cost us additional?
Sure. Yeah, I was thinking a lot about that, and we will work with our financial advisor to come up with an estimate. But I think everyone can recognize what's going on at the federal level is really impacting the municipal market. There's a lot of pieces within the tax proposals that could really disrupt the municipal market. So I'm just letting you know that we can get the estimates. I think 2018 is going to be a very different year for the municipal market. So we'll try to get you that. It also depends on which ones we actually go out to bond for because of the different PPUs, the different amortization schedules. So we'll get you an estimate, but I don't know how accurate it will be.
I mean, as best you can,
okay.
Estimate. And then second request is, could you make the type bigger?
On the PDF, you can make it bigger.
Okay, good. So thank you again to Arlene, to Jessica, Steve Pollock, and our DPW team that's sitting here, and of course to all the commissioners that are here and who have been such an instrumental part in giving us the input that we need as we go forward in developing this and going forward. So it should be an interesting 2 weeks. We look forward to hearing any comments and any input. So I move to adjourn. Mr. Wayne?
Councilwoman Georgia?
Aye.
Councilwoman Kaplan?
Aye.
Councilwoman Russell?
Aye.
Councilwoman Seaman?
Aye.
Councilwoman Zuckerman?
Aye.
Supervisor Fox?
Aye. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.